Yeah, he's a little disturbing, but Craig's a good bot when he works. Sometimes it doesn't feel like working. Okay.
How are we with swearing and such?
Do whatever you want.
Cool.
I don't censor anybody. So
Sounds good.
all right. So, Wiffle. What's when did you first start running Ratchet and Clank? Just as a baseline.
So I did my first neutral long jump in April of 2017.
Yo.
And I took a video of it and sent it to my friends and was like, "Yo, you can do a really big jump in this game. How cool is that?" And then from there, I joined the speedrunning Discord, and I did my first full run in August of 2017.
That is not that long ago.
In terms of this game, it's quite a while ago. But I suppose in like the wider speedrunning scene, it's not that long.
I guess so. I don't know. Just it feels like that was only 4 years ago. But then again, a lot happens in 4 years. So
yeah, of course.
Okay. You know, I wrote this question. And now I'm like, I don't know if that's the best way to word it. My question is, what's been your experience running Ouya? Like, so you started 2017.
Yep.
Were you doing it just for fun? Were you like trying to be competitive in it? How did that even come about? How did that go?
The reason I started running it was because I love the game so much. In fact, I was still like playing it casually, replaying it every like couple of years or so, probably.
Right.
And then I caught a run of GDQ 2016. Just saw it on YouTube, popped up in my recommended one day, and that was Zem's run there. And I was like, wow, that's really sick. I would like to learn to do that. So I started watching his stream, obviously. And then from there, when I first got into it, I was basically just wanting to do it for as long as I kept having fun. And that's always been my philosophy. It's like, as long as I'm still having fun, I'll keep doing it.
Right.
So I took a lot of long breaks in between. Like grind periods, I guess, where I felt like I wasn't having fun. I got burnt out quite a lot. But towards the beginning, when I was still learning, obviously improving a lot, that's really fun. You get a whole lot of dopamine when you hit a time that you've been working towards. But it wasn't really about being competitive for me, and it never really has been.
Okay.
It's just a game that I really like playing, and you can do a lot of cool shit in it. So I did. Yeah.
Yeah. So you said we haven't been really competitive in it. I find that very interesting because I think for several years you've been like second place. Like you've been like way up the leaderboard. For someone who does it just for fun, you're really good at this.
Yeah, that's right. Just the fact that I did it for so long, I didn't do a whole lot else. In like 2018 and 19, I spent like most of my free time on it because I was enjoying it so much. And obviously, when I started streaming, interacting with the community, I made a lot of friends who were all really encouraging. It's a really nice community. And that side of things definitely kept me going when the game was starting to get boring. And from there, as long as I'm still having fun, I'll keep improving. And if you keep improving, eventually you will reach the top of the leaderboard.
Yes,
which is what happened.
Yeah. Let's see here. We're kind of burning through these questions. What was that? So one of the things that I find really interesting is that in this story in particular, like Zem held the record for so long.
Yeah.
Did that phase you at all? That Zem was constantly just always one step ahead of everyone else?
Yes, absolutely. Up until like probably a year ago, even though in reality I was only like 20 seconds off Zem quite a few times, it felt like it was an insurmountable difference in skill. And it probably was. I think that was an accurate assessment of what was going on because every time I got close, he would just come back and knock out like a 30-second improvement on world record, and then I would be set back to where I was, which I think is a big part of why I felt the way I did about wanting to be competitive. because I knew that it would likely always be out of reach with how his mindset is. He is a very driven individual, we'll say. We'll go with that. And I have a tendency not to set my mind to something that I believe I can fail at, which is not ideal. But like when I do want to do something, I do it, I guess.
I get you. Yeah, not to get sidetracked, but it's like whenever you're like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to fail at that, so it's like, why even bother? Even sometimes it's like, I'm not going to worry about that. Like, I don't think it's going to happen.
So I think you're right on the money, suggesting that the fact that Zem had held the record for such a long time, I think there was probably some kind of block in my brain that, like, I've always believed I was never going to beat Zem, and then obviously someone else did, and I was like, oh, well, I can beat Tana. I've beaten Tana loads of times.
Yeah. Talk to me about Tarna a little bit. Like, what do you think of Tarna's gameplay? What are their strengths? What are the weaknesses?
His gameplay. Okay. Tana they now? I don't know. Anyway. So Tana has always been a very creative player in the game. He's never really gone for like absolutely everything optimal. He just sort of like he runs on instinct more than anyone else, I think. If you watch a lot of his old runs, you'll see him do things very differently to how people did things at the time, and it will like it works for him, or them, I guess, and that is sort of unique among like the top like 10 people or so. And then in this era, what defines his gameplay nowadays is the fact that he goes for the optimal two tricks, free fall skip and triple charge. That's obviously different to myself or Zem. Zem goes for triple charge, but not free fall skip. I imagine he will if he comes back. But yeah, Tana's the only one who's actually implemented both of those mind-bendingly reset-heavy tricks into the run, and that's what sets him apart from everyone else right now.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay. So he's like not phased by the hard stuff.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
Or he's just willing to put the grind in of endlessly resetting to free fall skip.
Fair enough. Okay. And so Tarna beat Zem, and you're like, oh, I can beat Tarna, so I can beat that, right? So that was your motivation to keep going?
wasn't my initial reaction. When it first happened, I was really happy for him. I was so proud of him. He really deserves it. He's been around a lot longer than me, and he's been there every step of the way, alongside me chasing the top. But I was also intensely jealous when it happened, because I really wanted to be the one to do it, of course. So a couple of months later, I got myself together, I guess, and then I did feel that way of, well, I've beaten Tana before, I can do it again.
Okay, I get you. I don't want to tunnel too far down into it, but you said you were jealous about that.
Yeah.
I mean, I would imagine that for a record for a Zem who's been the record holder for 5 years, like trying to take that away and be the next person has got to be like such a lofty goal, right?
Yeah, of course. Which is why it was so cool to see it finally happen. Everyone was popping off in the community. There was a huge VC that happened, and Tana drank a load on stream, which was pretty cool. But after that happened and that sort of initial period passed, I reflected on it a bit more. It's really like toxic, the line of thinking that I was in that day. I'd had a bad day in general when it happened. So I didn't have a good time there, and that's that probably fueled or sparked something in me, I'd say.
Okay. Something that is
A
really
desire
cool.
for self-improvement. Sorry, go ahead.
No, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Something that about this story that's really cool to me is that I didn't even notice it at the time, but I went to go check your Twitter because you had just gotten the record like a couple days before so I saw it. You got in the record like a day after it happened, and then I went to go check your Twitter, and you had posted something I think like a week before
Yep.
about like I I actually took a screenshot of it just in case, but you said something along the lines of like I don't push myself to meet these goals, or I'm not where I am in
Yeah.
life because I keep giving up on stuff before I get
Exactly.
there. And that was a week before, and then you're like, but this time I mean it. This time for real, I'm gonna buckle up and we're gonna fucking do this shit.
Yep.
Right? So tell me about that. What were you thinking at that time?
So I um I think I'd probably watched like a motivational YouTube video or something, and I was really feeling myself.
Mm.
And just looking back, there are a lot of things that I probably could have achieved much more if I had set my mind to them. And I was tired of doing that over and over again because it is a pattern that does keep cropping up, both in gaming and in my real life.
Mm-hmm.
So I just wanted to actually just see something through for once, as I wrote in that tweet thread, and then I did. I carried on for. It only took like a week. It didn't take as long as I thought it would, but however long it took, I was going to see it through.
Nice.
And that's why it was important to me.
Yeah, man. I mean, talk to me about the day that it happened, right?
Yeah, so I had a bit of a headache actually the day that I got it. So I wasn't feeling too good, but I knew I had to keep playing every day or I would just stop for months because I've done that before. So I forced myself to turn on the PS3 and do the practice and start streaming. And then on my very first attempt, I just kind of just hit everything. And it sort of came out of nowhere for me. I wasn't really ready. There were a few days where I definitely was ready for it to happen, if you can be.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in like a headspace where I was almost expecting it, but there I was sort of blindsided, and you can see in the VOD of the run afterwards, I'm definitely a little bit nervous talking about what happened, and I end up streaming my shout out list that I wrote a while ago, which was a bit awkward, but I like to think it's a little bit endearing as well.
Yeah. I found that really endearing whenever I watched the VOD because I was like, you were so confident that you were ready for this, that you wrote out a shout out list ahead of time. And it was just a matter of time of when you're gonna get to it.
Yep.
So I think that's really cool. What are your future plans? You know, like this happened, what, like less than a month ago, right? I guess at this point. Tarna took it back. Are you gonna try and take it back again, or what are you feeling?
The answer is a very big maybe. Right now, for a long time, I don't plan on doing anything to do with speedrunning, as it is a very large time sink.
Hmm.
And as I've mentioned, I have other things that I need to improve on in my life. So I'm going to hopefully channel the same mindset that I did in the video games and actually do something for once. So we'll see.
Fuck yeah, dude.
But someday, I imagine, I'll probably be like, yeah, I want to play some Ouya, and I will. And I will until I stop having fun with it, as I always have.
Hell yeah, dude. I'm glad to hear it. All right. Now that I got through all the main questions, we can talk about whatever. So,
Okay.
how do you feel about Zem? I mean, I guess how do I say this? That's probably not the right way to say it. Like, I don't know where I want to go with that. I don't know. I guess Zem is such a big part of this. I kind of want to hear what
Yeah,
everyone
of
else
course.
thinks about him. Like
Yeah.
what you said as a competitor. I think we asked about him. But what are your thoughts on Zem?
So probably a couple of years ago, I counted him among like a few of my like personal heroes. I have a really, really high opinion of the dude. He's insanely driven and motivated are the main things. And when he does set his mind to something, he does it. And we've seen that over and over again, both with the game and obviously he's achieved a lot in his professional career as opera singer, which is a really hard thing to get into, which
Mm-hmm.
is really cool as well. Um, and the dude's really fun to be around as well. He's super charismatic. He's perfect for streaming. I don't really have a bad word to say about him. Um, obviously, he was the inspiration for me getting into this whole scene, and it's because of him that I've met so many of my best friends nowadays, which I can't really thank him for enough.
Wonderfully said. In your run, you said something along the lines of not during the run, but like just a minute ago, you said that everything kind of just fell into place. And
Yeah.
I'm curious, what are some of like the harder things in the route currently that are like the big struggles? Or like, oh man, you got to hit this, this, and this if you want to get a record run.
Yeah. So every planet has something that can go wrong. But for me, it's really just a case of resetting because any given run I felt was capable of being the run. Obviously, it's different if you go for free fall skip on Velden. That's a huge reset point, and triple charge on Obani Draco is a huge reset point. That's a very difficult trick. But for me, the hardest tricks in the run really are the double long jumps on an Obani Gemini. It's something I got very consistent at in the last few days when I was running. But that's probably the hardest single trick in the run. And then there's Marcadia Mission 3, the turret skip, which is consistent, but it's like almost luck based because I don't think anyone's more than like probably 50-60% consistent on that one.
Mm.
Shout out to Riley, by the way. The dude destroyed the category. He made it really, really unfun for like a few days by finding the Agents of Doom version of this strat. And then he came back and saved the category again by finding the consistent version. And wait, where was I? Okay, I was on mission 3. And then from there, everything in the mid game is very easy to mess up. It's very easy to lose a lot of time on Nation and Hollow Star. But like if you hit them, then the max you can lose is like 5 seconds between those two splits, and like you probably hit both of them like 50% of the time, at least. So it's just a case of resetting until you manage to carry a run through the mid game there. And Draco, I shouldn't be messing up. The turret clip can go wrong. You can bonk a bunch of times. But if you do the safe strat, then it's relatively consistent. And then the rest of the game, it's really just like choking up until Instaclip. Instaclip is very inconsistent, and it's like I've had a pretty good record for hitting it under pressure, but like my last 2 PBs didn't have it. So when you hit it and you're on pace, that's when your heart starts moving a mile a minute. Definitely.
I get you.
Yeah. And then command center. Obviously, if you don't set up the whip jump at the end, that's very, very possible to mess up and lose the whole run too. But I decided not to do that because I had time to spare. And nowadays, obviously, you can mess up the final boss as well because of rapid firing and or sneak scoping, depending on whether you know who actually discovered it. Which is pretty cool. I really like that it's actually gameplay in the last few seconds of the run now instead of just mashing the circle button. It's a bit more aesthetic, I think.
Yeah, can you describe that for me real quick?
Yeah, of course. So rapid firing or sneak scoping, because it was discovered separately by 2 separate people, so it has 2 separate names.
Interesting.
It was originally broken by Haniwa, a Japanese runner. I'm sure you know who Haniwa is at this point. Who put it in his movement guide, which is in Japanese. So I don't think any of us actually watched it. And then, like a year later, Sneepy refound it. And basically, what you do, you fire a weapon, swing the wrench, pull the weapon out again, and fire it again, and you just repeat that, and it allows you to fire much faster than the capture rate of fire for whatever weapon it is you're firing. And the way that's useful in no QE is on the Bio-Obliterator, you want to fire as many sniper shots as fast as you can. So you fire a sniper shot, swing the wrench, fire a sniper shot, and so on. It's much more useful in any percent, I believe, and probably Hundo as well. But it saves a few seconds on the final boss, and it makes it actually gameplay, which is really cool.
Nice. Isn't it like 16 shots or something like that?
That's right, 16 shots.
Okay. Okay, that saves some time. This is going to sound like a weird question, but we did the video on Ratchet 2, right?
Uh-huh.
And one of the things that we were told, and that was, that was in my experience, was like Ratchet 2, they really started pushing proxies and like the mid-air charges a lot. Yep. And then it was really started there, and then it sort of slowly made its way into the other game, or I guess Ouya in particular.
Yep.
Has that been like a big thing that's changed in the last couple of years?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's been a couple of revolutions over the years of the development of no QE. The first one being Silence, bringing in neutral tech and so on, everything that he did for the game. And then the second one was really when Haniwa broke proxies and insta-whips and implemented them into the run. Obviously, they were already being done in Rack 2, but the switch to PS3 made it possible to do them by switching weapons in Ouya. Same with insta-whips. And that changed the run very significantly. It took me a long time to start implementing them. I tended not to implement new strats until I was completely happy with them and I needed to hit a goal, which meant I'd probably developed a little slower than most people. But like the stuff I'm good at, I'm very consistent at a lot of the time. So those were like the two big pivots of the development of the category over time. And the fact that we brought them over from Rack 2 is interesting because back in the day, Rack 2 was sort of viewed as like Ouya Light. It had everything Ouya had, but just a little bit less. And then Proxies became a thing, and that was sort of Rack 2's signature for quite a while. Until the game sort of developed in separate directions after that. Like, they share a lot of similarities, but it, like, when I play Rack 2, it feels just similar enough to throw me off, but it's a completely different game. Like, the way Fear has pushed that game differently to Ouya, he implements so much very, very difficult stuff, which is different to how I play Ouya, or at least I suppose it's more similar to how Tana plays Ouya, with the double charges and such. As far as I'm aware, they're slightly easier in Rack 2, but I might be wrong on that one. I haven't messed around with them too much.
I've heard the same, yeah.
They're the same. Okay, good to know.
I've heard the same, that they are slightly easier in Rack 2.
If you've been told that, I trust whoever told you more than I trust myself on that. I don't know. But yeah, they definitely developed in different directions, despite being very similar games on the surface, I'd say.
Okay. And you mentioned Haniwa, or Haniwa. I don't know how to pronounce it exactly. Tell me a bit about them.
So, sort of out of nowhere in like either 2018 or 2019. I can't remember when they first broke onto the scene. They just started doing like montages of tech that we had never seen before, and it just blew everyone's mind. It was like it was like Christmas for a few days in the Discord of people just watching back Haniwa's montages, and when he started doing runs and replicating what he had discovered, and trying to figure out how we could best use it, which was a really fun time, because when I first started, it was sort of the widely held opinion that Ouya was pretty much a dead game. Everything that there was to find, or a dead game in terms of strat development, everything that there was to find had been found. Like maybe there was half a second of optimization here or there. And then that turned out to definitely not be the case, because it's changed so much since then, which was really cool to see, and really heartening that stuff's still being found however many years later after this game started being developed in like 2015 or so. And Honeywell was one of the biggest contributors to that. I don't really know them as a person. Obviously, there's a language barrier there, but as a player of video games and editor, I suppose, of YouTube content, but top of the range, I suppose.
All right. Yeah, I know I've seen Haniwa's name, and I haven't quite gotten that far in my research. So,
okay.
did they ever submit to the leaderboard, or what's their
yes,
PB?
They didn't seem too bothered with getting like the best time that they could. They were more concerned with making every planet look as swag as it possibly could.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is a really awesome philosophy to have for speedrunning. It's just showing off like as many hype things as you can over the course of a half-hour run through the game. It's more like an art piece than a competitive submission, I would say, is the way I would describe it. Yeah.
That's going in the video, by the way. More of an art piece.
Yeah, I think that's a good line.
Okay. I think that's all the questions that I have for you. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you're like, we have to talk about this in the video? Which is a vague question, I know. But...
Yeah, of course. I feel like there's definitely something I should think of here. But nothing springs to mind as really being missing from this conversation. I think we pretty much covered start to finish everything that I have to say about the game, which is just obviously one person's perspective.
Fair enough. If anything does come to mind, by all means, you let me know, and I'll make time. We'll sit down, we'll do another recording or something. Or you can just tell me. We'll figure it out.
Yeah, of course, we'll do.
Alrighty. Well, let me go ahead and end the recording here. Craig, be gone!